Hello, Misfit Nation. This is Dave Lukas, and welcome to another episode of the Misfit Entrepreneur, where it is our job to help you unleash your inner misfit and break through to higher levels of success, wealth, and fulfillment by bringing you the best insight and information from the world's top entrepreneurs, with a specific focus on their misfit side, the specific traits, habits, and secrets that have allowed them to thrive and succeed. As a reminder, if you're new to this channel, hit the subscribe button below, give this video a like and comment as well, and we do our best to respond to all comments that we get as soon as possible. So check those out. Add some comments in. Love to see you there. This week's Misfit Entrepreneur is Robb Green. Robb is an interesting entrepreneur. He was a successful executive. He gave up that career to create the life that he wanted for him and his family, and he found his niche in building brands on Amazon and other areas online. In fact, he's created, built, and owned 17 different brands, doing millions and tens of millions in revenue. He's also been featured in the New York Times and many other publications. He's the host of the popular I'm the One podcast, providing practical guidance on building wealth, maintaining healthy relationships, and achieving well-being. If you've ever wanted to learn how to build your own brand and monetize it online, Robb is the one that you want to learn from. He's one of the best teachers that you can find, and I'm excited for him to come on and share how to do it. So let's jump in. Robb, are you ready to unleash your inner misfit?
I'm excited, Dave. Ready to talk to you.
Hey, man, it's great to have you on. And as we do with every guest, we start with each guest taking a few minutes to tell their story. You've had kind of an interesting journey to get to where you're at. So take 5 minutes or so and just tell us, how'd you get to where you're at?
Yeah, great question. I think, I went to the traditional route, went to college, got a finance degree, got a job as a stockbroker, actually, at Charles Schwab, and started teaching the Series 7. It wasn't really a fit for me. Went back to school, got my MBA, worked for couple other Fortune 500 companies, and just realized I wasn't a great fit in corporate America. I think as many people, there's not a lot of freedom in corporate America, and I was never set up for that, but I didn't know what to do next. I found my path by actually starting an entrepreneur as a drop shipping business, e-commerce, back in 2011. And so that led me down the path of really getting into the field and understanding e-commerce and learning all by doing it myself. And then I learned about private labeling, manufacturing our own brands, which I started in 2015. Funny enough, I bought a course in 2014 online, which I always laugh every time I say that because there's so many of these courses and people don't actually turn into any success from them. But it was actually a wonderful idea. It gave me an understanding of how to create my own products and create my own brands. Trip to China, started building brands. I've sold a few of them. I've created many of them. Some of them don't work, to be honest with you. And that's one thing too many people skip over. I've started a bunch of projects and brands that didn't work out the way we expected them to, but we've had a lot of really great success with it. And we focus on Amazon as our primary distribution channel, and we sell in Walmart and Shopify also. So
excellent.
That's kind of how I've got.
We'll start there.
I am from. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah,
sorry, Dave.
good. So that's all right. So starting there, did you have something? Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think really the catalyst for me becoming an entrepreneur when I was working in corporate America was I had our daughters are now 14 and 13. And that was really the focus point for us. Is my wife and I said, I don't want to have the lack of freedom to be able to spend time with my daughters, especially when they're not in school for the summertime. So that was a big catalyst for me to say, hey, listen, we've got to find a different path so that when they're not in school, we can travel as a family and do the things that we want to do as a family.
Yeah, that's something actually I want to talk to you about a little later on. The place I want to start, I guess I want to start high level on building brands and online selling and everything. And because for a lot of people, it's like this giant black box, right? There's all these methodologies and ways of doing it and all these different things. But I think there's probably only a few paths that truly lead to success online, especially when it comes to using these other seller platforms like Amazon and stuff. So you've owned 17 brands. You've had a lot of others, fail on the way. We'll talk about that some. But talk to us first about your process. Talk about process of starting a brand, taking it through to monetization. What have you learned? It's a big question, I have to say, but A to Z, how does it work? How should somebody go about doing this if they're interested in it?
Yeah, we've got a pretty simple process. It's not easy, but simple, really. So what we try to find first, is there a gap in the market? Is there a gap in a product segment? And generally use specific tools for scraping data. Amazon's got the most data-rich environment to pull down, because you can understand with some simple tools like a Jungle Scout or a Helium 10 how much each product sells on an everyday basis. I think most people struggle as an entrepreneur because they build something that there's no demand. And when we've failed, that's probably the biggest mistake I've ever made, is I build something that doesn't have enough demand to sustain it. And then the second thing we make as a mistake, I think, as entrepreneurs is, do we build something and over-engineer it that there is demand for it, but not at the price point where it makes sense to make a profit? I talk to business owners all the time because we're in acquisition mode right now. And they said, oh, we did retail. We spent, I had a call this morning. We spent millions of dollars. We built this really great product. We went into retail. We found out we couldn't make any money. They'd over-engineered the product for the retail space and can't make any profit. And at the end of the day, it's got to make sense across the board from a demand perspective, and then also from having the ability to actually make profit at the end of the day. And I think too many people think, I'm just going to scratch this itch or I'm going to solve this problem, and don't do the work up front to understand, is there enough demand? Then can I win in that space? Do I have something that's differentiated, whether it's my marketing ability, my branding ability, my unique cost advantage? Do I have a way to obtain products, right, in a way that other people don't? Can I make a product that's better for cheaper than other people? And then do I have the unit economics for whatever distribution channel that I want to sell on? Does it make sense? And I think a lot of people that are new to the e-commerce space, let's call it, they underestimate how expensive it is to sell on Amazon. I mean, they take 15% off the top. Plus, you've got your FBA fees. You've got to expect about 30 to 35% of every dollar you bring in on Amazon is gone to Amazon, not including marketing.
Yep.
Right? And so you've got to understand that basic economics before you can even say, well, shoot, I've got a product that makes maybe 50% margin, right? Gross margin. Plus that 35, you're down to 15% before you paid for overhead or advertising. That product is probably not going to make any money. And if it does, it's going to make pennies. It's not going to be worth the effort. So I think really taking a top-down approach from a demand perspective is the first step. You've got to get demand correct. And then you've got to understand the unit economics of the distribution channel.
So how does somebody get demand correct? Like, what are some of the key things they should be looking for or, researching to ensure that there is the demand? And again, like, how do you find your niche, right? Because we're talking about niches of products here.
Yeah. So I think we take a pretty large approach. We look at the whole ecosystem of Amazon, and we look at all of the data that's accessible to us. But the one thing that Amazon does, and I think it's on purpose because Walmart doesn't really do this, but they put something called a bestseller rank on every product detail page. So you can tell what the actual bestseller rank in a subcategory. So we've got a product, we've got a bartender kit, and it's the 5,000th bestseller in home and kitchen, let's say. Well, that tells you it's like the third best in its subcategory, but that tells you there's some basic algorithms, some Chrome extensions you can use, like a Jungle Scout. And they'll say, okay, that 5,000 in home and kitchen equates to 50 units a day, right? You understand, well, that one product sells 50 units a day. And you can look at the whole category of products and say, okay, in this category, the bestseller sells 80 units a day. The third bestseller sells 50 a day. The 10th bestseller sells 10 a day, for example. Where could I position myself and my product to be in that ecosystem? And then how can I get to that level? Is that worth it for me to enter that space? And generally speaking, the more sales volume there is, I mean, there are products that sell thousands of units a day on Amazon. I mean, thousands of units a day. They're going to be more competitive, right? You don't go sell iPhone cases, right? Don't go into a category that has got incredible competition unless you have the ability to compete and beat them in other ways, right? So I think using like a Chrome extension, like a Helium 10 or a Jungle Scout for anyone that's looking to do online, and now for Amazon specifically, each platform has their own type of Chrome extension. Whether somebody wants to participate on Etsy, for example, there are different Chrome extensions to understand how much they sell per day. There's Amazon, there's Walmart, and these are just the marketplaces. There's Shop Hunter for Shopify. You can go to a site and look and see how many units they sell. Now you've got TikTok shops. Now you can understand how much people are selling on TikTok. We've got a call with some friends here tomorrow about TikTok shops and how to leverage that. And you can see the data. And the key is don't sell something nobody else wants, because you're going to struggle to create demand.
Right.
I think of demand as a river. I don't want to try to build a new river. I want to step into the river of demand and let the river wash over me. and grab the opportunities that are coming down through that river. That's how I think about it. Not that you can't create a new category or a new brand or a new subsection of a category. It's just much, much harder. And I think people underestimate the education piece that's involved. I'd rather step into something that already has the demand.
Yeah, that makes sense. Go where there's already demand, where there already are people buying it every single day, and then position yourself, to play in that space. I guess that's probably the bigger challenge then, is how do you position yourself, in a category, right? So like on
Yeah.
I was going to ask just in general about Amazon. So this gets into that, but like, how do you position yourself? Let's say you find a category where, obviously there's like 5,000 products or whatever, right? But how do you position yourself in a category so that you're going to, number one, make sales, number two, do that profitably?
Yeah. Number one is the beauty of having a physical product is that there's almost always gaps in the manufacturing and the creation of these products, right? So we use, now with GPT and with AI, it's a heck of a lot easier, but we pull down all the reviews off of Amazon of every product that we want to enter against. And we just run sentiment analysis with AI. So that sentiment analysis will tell us, how do people feel about this product? What are the most common words and phrases they use about the product? And that helps us to identify opportunities for us to improve the product. We don't typically just do a off the shelf, slap a label on a product. That rarely works. And in today's environment, I wouldn't recommend anybody do that, because it's just, if you've got a milk frother, I used to sell a milk frother, and I've got a milk frother, they probably are the same product or very similar product, right? It's just a different box and a different brand on it. I think you're better off trying to differentiate the product in the way that you make it, but really speaking to what people's needs are, right? If the easiest stuff is, obviously color is aesthetic, but the easiest thing to do is change the material of a product, right? Maybe the material that the product is made with is not ideal for its use case, right? So I'll use a really simple example. One of my first brands was a dog product brand, and they have these little dog feeders. They're called slow feeders. So if you have a dog that eats too fast, it's almost like a little mini maze obstacle course for dogs. And the dog has to chew around and eat around it. So it kind of slows the dog down. Simple product. This was years ago that we made. And the product is made out of hard plastic. We tried to make it with a food grade silicone. Big mistake. Guess what happens? Dogs like to bite on silicone and chew the little product to pieces, right? So we tried in that example to change the product material, because it was easier on the dog. It didn't hurt their nose at all. It was softer, still served the same purpose, but it was a failure in changing the product material, right? So changing product material or design is the best way to reach someone's problem and solve that problem for them, in my opinion. And that's, designing and engineering doesn't have to be uberly complicated. And what I mean by that, and I'm not a big coffee guy, I'm a tea guy. We made a cold brew product. I'll give you another example. I could do these all day, Dave, but I get another example. We made a cold brew product, and the glass products clink if you have a glass carafe and you put it on a countertop, a granite countertop, or into your refrigerator. They make noise, right? And glass on countertops have a tendency to possibly break. So what we did is we redesigned the bottom of the glass so it had an indentation. Then we put a silicone cover on the bottom. So it still looked aesthetically pleasing if you didn't want to use the silicone cover. But if you did want to use it, it wouldn't slide when it was wet across a countertop, and it wouldn't make that noise, and it reduced breakage. So that was a very easy, simple glass mold and a silicone mold to make a better product in that space.
Yeah, that's a great example of like copy and innovate. Like look at what's doing well and then just innovate on it a little bit just to give it a differentiation. I guess you said design a lot through there and stuff. So how do you do? I mean, I don't take it you're sitting around designing these products and doing this stuff, right? So talk about like the actually getting one of these made, because I know you're going overseas. You're going to probably China for it. So, and I think you've been to like Guangzhou and in some areas before to find manufacturers and stuff. So, talk a little bit about that aspect, because let's say somebody is watching this, they're like, okay, this sounds really cool. I'd love to have a business in this space. I can go research my niches. I can look at the market. I can come up with an idea for a product that may be able to compete, but now I got to get it made, right? So talk about that, how all that works.
So I haven't been to China since COVID, but I went about 7 or 8 times prior to COVID. I actually took my oldest daughter. I think she was almost 10. It was the fall Guangzhou Canton Fair right before COVID. And going to a trade show, there's no better way than go to a trade show to get ideas. I mean, I say every time I walk the floor, I make money. I went to one last week in Vegas for Supply Side West, which is ingredients for supplements and foods. And every time you walk the floor, I'm humble and I'm curious. I walk around and I say, hey, I love this product. How do you make it? Tell me more. What would you do to make this better? Is there a way it's made with this product, this material. Is there another material you could make this with that would make it more durable, for example, right? So I would walk from one booth to the next booth and by the time you walk one row, you're darn near an expert in that product. Because there's a lot of these factories are making 10 of similar product. I'm not going to call them the same, but sometimes they're exactly the same. And you'll get them and they'll pull off, here's an idea we had. And they'll pull it from below the curtain and show you and go, look at what if we do this? And you're like, great idea. I want to do that. What's that called? How much would that cost? And you walk to the next booth and you stack. Like, I think we all try to learn in different ways, but I try to stack my learnings. And the same thing when you manufacture a product, it's like, how do I stack my learnings about this product? And so we do in-house tests too. Like we've got a team here in Phoenix and we'll buy the best-selling product and we'll look at it and we'll break it down and go, hey, how can we make this better? A lot of times it's really easy stuff like packaging, like the box quality, the instruction. I cannot believe how many people do a terrible job in instruction manuals. Like it's shocking. It's absolutely mind-blowing. But I think from a design perspective, I think utilizing suppliers who already make the product and using customer reviews and sentiment analysis gives you most of the answers to make a better product than what exists in the marketplace today.
Yeah. So how do you go about finding a manufacturer? You find them at trade shows or do you go through Alibaba? Like what's the way to find somebody or a group to manufacture for you?
Alibaba's like the brand new person who wants to find a supplier. It works. You could talk to some people, right? My methodology has always been the same since day one. I can either go out there and try to figure out who's a good manufacturer of this product, or I could just go find somebody that already makes a great product and reverse engineer who makes it for them. Right. So we used to have a brand a long time ago that made back when it was popular, the first popular, the hydro flasks. And Yeti came out with the thermoses. So I went to a supplier. I just reverse engineered. So there's a tool called, and I think it's free still today, called importyeti.com. You can put in a supplier or a brand name. Either way, either direction, the supplier or the brand that buys in the US or the LLC, and find their supplier from China. And the reason you can find that is because this is all customs records. So it's all public record. Import Yeti's done a really good job of putting it into an interface, right? And then by doing that, you can actually see their suppliers. Now you're way ahead of the game as opposed to just doing a shotgun approach. Now you have a conversation and say, hey, I like this product that you already make. And by the way, we already know it does well because they have a good review record, a good review rating, right? So we know they make a high quality product. So now we know that you make this for them. What if we made a slightly different product that looked like this? Can you give me a sample and a quote on that? That's the fastest and best way to finding great suppliers. One other little trick, since we're talking about misfits here, Dave, I like to try to find shortcuts when I can. So we'll call the 800 number if it's manufactured in the US, and we'll say, hey, Dave, I love your product. I love this product, and I want to use it, but it's something that goes inside of my body. Can you please tell me where it's manufactured? And a lot of times they'll tell you the supplier, where it's located, and where it's manufactured. That gives you an amazing starting point to have those conversations. And it levels you up from being the person who's just shotgunning out to 100 different suppliers.
No, those are all really great points. And that's it sounds like that Import Yeti is a really great resource for people to check out. Okay. So Robb, talk to us about the marketing side of this, right? So I've got my product, I've got my manufacturer. right? I've got my niche that I want to be in. And so now how do I market this thing? How do I get my sales really, consistent and growing and obviously making money, right?
Yeah. So I think the starting point really is, what is your distribution channel going to be? You can't be great at everything, especially coming out of the gate. You're not going to be great at TikTok, Instagram, Pinterest, Google Ads, Amazon Marketplace, Shopify. You're not going to be great at everything. So pick a channel that you think that you can be great at, or maybe it's your skill set. Maybe you're an influencer or creator already. Maybe you're analytical and you're really going to be great at pay-per-click ads, Google ads or Amazon ads. Find that channel and lean into that channel. So right now, TikTok Shops is blowing up. We're not on there, but we're going to get on there very soon. A lot of friends have seen it. They're calling it like the heyday of Amazon. Like they're calling it like it was Amazon like 10 years ago in terms of opportunities. So I'll talk more about Amazon specifically. How it all comes, if you think about it, everything is digital real estate, Dave, right? So Amazon is just like a landowner. It's just a digital landowner. So you've got page one. And honestly, it used to be when I first started, you want to get on page one. Then you needed to be in the top 15, then the top 10. Now you really need to be in the top 5 or you don't exist. And the reason is Amazon's got ads. So you might be 7th, but you're way down at the bottom. You're going to get no visibility, right? Everything comes back to visibility and conversion. So do you have traffic? Do you have conversion? And the biggest thing to do is say, how am I going to compare relative to my direct competition? How is my main image going to look next to Dave's main image? How do I compare? Am I more appealing? Am I going to win the click, as I call it? Am I going to win the click so that somebody clicks on me as opposed to Dave's product? And then do I have a compelling offer with the words? But it's fascinating to me how the main image is the number one driver of clicks. And most people go main image, don't even think about it, title, click, then maybe read. Most likely, our data says they don't. They look at some of the other images, then they go down to the reviews. So it's a very visual story you're trying to tell. And then we write for the algorithm and we create the images for the consumer. So we're trying to marry the algorithm. We're writing for the keywords.
Let me stop you because that's a really big distinction. So you write for the algorithm, but it's the images to get the consumer to buy. So optimizing your store, your page, for your product obviously it's a science, it sounds like.
Yes.
In a way.
It is. So there are quite a few more tools out there now to extract what we call keyword research. So you've got to understand what keywords drive sales. And it's interestingly enough, Amazon is doing a much better job of natively showing these keywords. I'm actually flying to Seattle tomorrow for a meeting at Amazon on Thursday, discussing their roadmap for these tools that they're trying to show more data on. You still have to understand how to utilize the data. And honestly, they do a terrible job of even telling people that there's data is out there. But once you actually break down and look at the data, you can understand, hey, I use that bartender kit as an example. Bartender kit is a main keyword for that product, right? But maybe an ancillary keyword might be gifts for husband, especially around Christmas time, right? Now, we don't focus on gifts for husband throughout the year, but maybe we do during Christmas in Q4 because it's going to be, oh, shoot, your wife's looking for a product for you, Dave. Say, I don't know, he's got everything. What do I buy? I don't know, gifts for husband, right? I'm looking, she's looking around. And there'll be a bunch of different products to show up, but we might be the only bartender kit that shows up. And if we're the only bartender kit shows up and that resonates with her, we're going to capture that sale, right? So understanding your keyword research, and then we write for the algorithm, which means we put the keywords in there that allow us to show up. Dave, I think we're about the same age. Remember back in the old days when they used to have catalogs come to the house?
Oh, yeah.
Physical paper catalogs.
Catalogs, yep.
The young guys don't even know what we're talking about.
You know what's interesting? I have to say, just sidebar on that. Like Amazon is sending out a catalog for the holidays now. It's geared more towards like kids and toys, but I noticed that they're sending out catalogs. It's interesting how that's in some ways coming back around. But sorry, go ahead.
No, it's all full circle, I think. So, and they've got all the data. Yeah. They know exactly what to put in there, right, to send out to these kids. So when we I think of it this way. if you think about Amazon as a catalog, which it is, it's a catalog of products. You need to tell Amazon, one, to put you in the catalog, right? So do you even show up anywhere for the keywords that people are searching? Number one. And then number two, the goal is, how do I move up from the back of the catalog to the front of the catalog, which is page 20 to the top 3 or top 4. And that's where it gets more difficult, specifically around Amazon as it's gotten more competitive, is how do I beat my competition? Everything we think about is, how are we relatively better than our direct competition? And that can be the images, the title, the bullet points, the price sometimes, the quality of the product. If it's a kit, do we have better products in the product? Have we designed and differentiated our product, right? So it's one of those things that it's a multifaceted approach that we take. And then once you have the visibility, are you actually converting? And if we're converting, then the economics, that's where it comes down to simple math, Dave. And that's where I think a lot of people don't take the time to sit down and go, okay, if I get this impression, this click, this add to cart, and then this purchase, that's the only way to make money. And the reality of advertising in today's world online, it's very hard to be profitable with your advertising because there's so much demand now for Amazon ads. Your cost per click just continues to rise every year, right? So you have to be better and better at getting the click and getting the conversion. So most people I know try to break even on the ads to get the volume and the visibility, and then they make profit on the organic search on Amazon, where someone goes down, scrolls down, and actually clicks and buys off of an organic search. That's general playbook. And then we could get a whole lot deeper into the data side of things. Do you have repeat customers? Do you have cross sells? Could you make money in other ways from that customer? Will that customer come back and buy in 3 months from now? Is it a recurring subscribe and save?
Right.
Those are all the other ways to try to leverage and get higher lifetime value from the customer.
Is it better to try to create a recurring type product versus a one-time sale nowadays?
It's always better. So many products don't allow themselves to be subscribe and save, or this is where over engineering comes in. We used to sell, I used to have a fitness brand a long time ago, and we sold foam rollers. I still have the foam roller at my house, in my gym at home from 8 years ago. So there's no need for me to ever buy another foam. It's an EVA foam roller. It doesn't break down. Like, I don't need to buy another foam roller. That's a terrible business, to be honest with you. Even water bottles, you wear out water bottles, or you lose them, or the cap doesn't work anymore, or the paint comes off. You're still more likely to buy more water bottles than you are something that never breaks down. So there is an aspect of over-engineering, and or is it the right product? It's really hard to sell a $20 product nowadays and not sell something else to them in the future. Just the math really breaks down in today's world.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured. I think because of the way the competition is, the cost of it and everything else, you've got to have a way to get repeat sales or secondary sales, with complementary products or something like that if you're going to have a brand. Anything else we should know? Any other best practices for selling on Amazon? And you mentioned Shopify too. Is there anything we should know about Shopify? I want to get into some of the other things about your entrepreneur journey and your I'm the One podcast and stuff. But yeah, anything else surrounding this topic or these mediums that people should know?
I think that the biggest challenge for people is they want to do everything all at once. I'm like this. I know most of my entrepreneur friends are like this. They want to go every vector. They want to do everything all today, right? And I think I always tell people, like, listen, if I'm the guy telling you should focus, you should probably listen, because I'm the guy that's always doing a million different things. So focus on one channel and focus on what you want to do. And hopefully it's something that you have some skills in and you're better than maybe you're a branding expert. Maybe you're really got a design mind and you're great at designing a better product. But focus on that, and then find other people to help you with your items that you're not competent at, right? I talk to people all the time. They're like, hey, I don't know anything about this channel. That's why you're struggling. And you don't have anybody on your team or any expert to help you. I co-founded a mastermind 6 years ago. So we get together 3 times a year, and we all share with each other what's working, what's not working, and mostly e-commerce. But we all help each other because nobody's an expert at everything, right? Nobody. So stay in one lane and go deeper into that lane and try to win at that. That's the best advice I can give everybody. And this is coming from a guy who really struggles with this. I've got new ideas every single day, new opportunities every day, and just stay focused as much as you can.
Yeah, it's always 5% idea, 95% execution in the end. And the problem is if you have too many ideas, you can't execute on any of them. So you have to just pick the one, see it all the way through, then you can go to the next one and so on. I'm just like you. I've, started a bunch of different things over the years and had things that were going well and started something else in the midst of that. And it suffered because I didn't stay focused, and I had to learn to stay focused. I think that's a really great lesson. And while we're on lessons, I guess, are there any other lessons that you've learned just in general from building and scaling multiple companies?
Yeah, I think invest in a team, and invest in a team that's been there and done that earlier. I was a solopreneur and contractor guy using contractors for far too long. I think the biggest lesson is taking on too many things. Really figure out what your core unique abilities are, your core competencies. What are you world class at? The stuff that you're not great at, find somebody else that's already been there and done that and hire them as soon as you possibly can and take that off your plate. And then that, for me, at least, that allows me to narrow my focus and stay in my lane where I'm great. Because if I'm doing things that I'm even competent at, but that's not what I should be doing. I should be staying in my lane, things I'm really great at. That adds the most value to the business and to the entire enterprise.
Yeah, I have to agree with that too. I think, you have to really recognize what your zone of genius is and then discipline yourself to stay in it and then find others that have the zone of genius for those complementary areas around you. And I admit, it's like the hardest thing for people to do. I think you'd agree with that, right? You have to go through a lot of trial and error there and everything else. And at the same time, you've got to build your business to where you can, afford to have that type of thing too. So in some ways it's a catch-22 for people, but that's the work. That's what it takes to succeed as an entrepreneur. It's where a lot of people flame out because they just can't get to that next level. One of the best ways that can help you, though, I found, and I think you'd agree with this, is doing a really good job on your systems and being in documenting them and knowing the steps to do a process and stuff. Because if it's all in your head and you're, chief cook and bottle washer, and you're trying to hand it off, a lot of times that stuff fails because they're not you. And if you haven't taken the time to say, hey, these are the 10 steps to do this every single time, and give that to somebody so they can follow it, it makes it a lot harder too. And you spin your wheels with that stuff, right? And so that's I think a key thing for us all to think about is like, how do we position anybody we bring into our world, that's not us, to make them successsul? What can we do to make them more successful? And one of the best ways is to document your systems, document your steps and your SOPs. I think you'd agree with that. And the beautiful thing is you probably found is once you've done that and you get a good team member that can take it and run with it, they make it better. And they improve it, right?
100%. I'm actually terrible at creating processes. I'm great at editing them. So we've got a couple of people on our team who are world-class at making them and breaking them down. I find if I'm the guy building a process, I skip steps like crazy, Dave. I'm like, oh, it's 1, 2, 7, 10. Oh, shoot, I forgot all the stuff in the middle, right? And so there's a rule around here. I should never make a process. So I'm great at editing, but that doesn't mean I shouldn't sit down with somebody who is great at it, and they'll extract it out of my head and they'll build a process. And I completely agree with you. If you don't have a process for it, how could you it sets people up to fail, right? You don't have your expectations are different what's in your head than what you've communicated to them, and you're kind of setting them up to fail because then they don't have the ability to meet your expectations.
So, with that kind of being said, let's talk about the work you do at I'm the One, because this is a lot of the type of stuff you help people with, you share on the podcast. I'm curious, through the work that you've done with I'm the One and like your mastermind and others, what do you see are the biggest challenges that you found that really keep entrepreneurs from reaching their potential?
Number one thing, it's the mindset. It's in their head. It's in their head. I think we all have these limiting beliefs that get in our head and we stop ourselves. I see it all the time. We have, at the mastermind, we do a section called board of directors. So generally each person has to give two presentations. One is all for them and the other is all for everybody else. And we change up the format periodically. But the board of directors is my favorite, where the person will share exactly what's happening in their business, financials, everything if they want to share. And then they'll ask everybody else in the room, typically 10 to 13 other people, what do you think I should do? Or here's a specific problem I have. And it's so easy to see other people and what they should do. And it's so hard for us sometimes to pull ourselves out of it and say, gosh, if I was looking at my own business, man, I wouldn't do this. I would do something else. And so that's the best thing I'd say is really understanding, in your head, are you holding yourself back? And, I've met a few guys who have been, very, very wealthy, massive exits, and they think differently, right? They think very, very differently than a small first-time entrepreneur does. And a lot of times the same amount of work to build $1 million business, to build a $20 million business, to build a $50 million business, it might be the same amount of work. I haven't built a $100 million business yet. That is the next goal of what we're trying to do, is build a $100 million business. And I've got a friend who's, built $1 billion businesses, and being a part of that and advising on his business is fascinating to me, because I just think how he thinks so big and how he thinks about it is just different level. So a lot of times just get out of your own way and don't think so small, and maybe have someone else challenge you. Are you really thinking as big as you possibly can?
Are there some specific examples of what that thinking bigger looks like for people at that level? Any interesting things that you found are the kind of differentiators?
I think the biggest thing is someone to ask you great questions, right? Some great questions would be like, hey, Dave, you want to build this business and you want to take over here. Great example. You want to build a bike shop. Okay. You want to buy a brick and mortar bike shop. Okay, great. Well, do you want to buy 20 bike shops or one bike shop? Do you want to build a brand that does, 500,000 a year on Amazon, or do you want to build a brand that does 5 million a year on Amazon? And whatever that answer is, well, why is that the answer? Is it because you haven't thought bigger? Is it because you don't I feel like a lot of people don't believe in themselves. They lack the confidence that they can actually make it happen. I feel like that's the biggest thing. And then people don't know other people. I grew up without any money. We divorced parents. We didn't have any money. I didn't really know anyone that was a successful entrepreneur. I didn't have that experience. And one thing about hanging out with a bunch of successful entrepreneurs and putting yourself in that position, that proximity to other success, you just start thinking bigger. Because I don't know about you, Dave, but I sit down, I say this guy who's a billionaire, and I'm like, that guy is not any smarter than I am. He's no different than I am. I mean, he's a smart guy, don't get me wrong, but you're like, he's not Elon Musk. He's not like, holy crap, I can't hold a conversation with him. He's not an alien. He's a guy that puts his pants on just like I do, and he's solved it differently. He's thought about it differently, right? And I think most people just have to have the confidence to go after it, to believe it's possible. And then if it is possible and somebody's already done it, how do you think about it? How do you take yourself to that next level of thinking bigger? Is it really a physical barrier? Is there only this much demand in the market, or are you just thinking too small on your own? And I think that's for me, at least. I whiteboard things and have friends that ask me those questions. That's the true values. Have some other people to talk to about this. It's really hard to be a solopreneur. If you're just doing it at your house by yourself, I think you go to meetups, go to trade shows, you listen to podcasts, but go out in the real world and get belly to belly to people and meet people and have people you can communicate with. I think that's the real big thing, is getting out of your own head and getting past those barriers.
Yeah, I think that's a really just great point for anyone. And it's not like it's easy. You got to actually do the hard work with yourself to break through those barriers. But you should challenge yourself as an entrepreneur. Really, in anything in life, you should challenge yourself. Don't take the status quo for granted, even if you're successful, right? I think there's a lot of great things that happen on the other side of that. Last question for you before we get to your Misfit 3. I know family is very important. You talked about, kind of really going into being an entrepreneur, really to create the life that you wanted. And so what are some of your best tips on how to successfully manage your time between work and family that you put into place and helps you be there the way that you want to be there?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier that when we talked before about this, I try. We travel every summer. We live in Phoenix. It's hotter than Hades here. So we get out. We're gone for 2 months every summer. We did Hawaii this summer. We did Portugal and Greece last summer. When we travel, it's even easier than during the school year. We got kids and sports, and there's a lot going on. But when we travel, it's a forcing function for me. So for Hawaii, for example, I only was available to work between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. That's it. I didn't take any meetings or any work outside of 7 to 10. And we built a structure around that, right? At 10 a.m., as a family, we'd go to the gym, we'd work out as a family, go have a healthy lunch, and then we'd either go to the beach or do our daily activities and go have fun. When we're in Europe, same exact thing. I only take meetings from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. If we had any, we would go out, we would do our activities for the day. We'd go see the sights. We'd go have fun. We'd go to the beach. Then I'd come back. If I had any meetings, if I had to work, I would work between just those hours. Everybody would kind of decompress, and then we would go to dinner. So I find building a structure. I mean, I feel like I'm like a lot of entrepreneurs. I like working. I like what I do. I always want to do more. And so trying to force myself to not eat that time up, because it really is a trade-off. We only have so much time in the day. So I structure my day so that I don't take meetings after 3:30. When I'm home, I don't take meetings after 3:30 because that's when the kids are out of school. That's when they're available. I make it a priority, and I know it's hard for people because it's hard for me to do it too. I make it a priority. I don't miss any practices or games for my kids or any sport that they're in. I make it a priority to put them as an integral part of our life. I think it's hard when people try to balance. Like, the kids are involved in the business. They understand how it works. Integrate is the biggest thing to me. Is how do I integrate? I've taken one of my daughters to China. The other one would have gone had COVID not happened. They talk about the business. They understand the business. I interviewed my daughter on the podcast a few weeks ago. I want to integrate that because I think it's really hard. There's only so many hours in a day, and so many people are like, well, if I do this morning routine and I do this much work and I do this evening routine, and then I want to spend time with my kids and my wife and my friends, you've got to be able to figure out hard stops, because it's really a difficult thing if you don't. You've got to put the time and energy in, because I feel like this time goes by too fast. Daughters are 14 and 13. I can't believe it's gone by this fast. I want to get as much time as I can with them while I still have the time to spend time with them.
Yeah, I that's an excellent point about integrate. Another thing that you mentioned too that I think is really it's almost for people it's hard to grasp or put their head around, and it was taught to me a long time ago, is that structure actually equals freedom. And people think that putting in like a lot of rigid structure or that sort of thing is more confining, but it's really not. It actually helps you to get the freedom that you seek in that free time and everything else. And so it's time for Robb's Misfit 3. These are the 3 things that he wants you to take that you can put in your life, your business, make a difference for yourself starting today. And the way that I always frame this to every guest that comes on the show is I say, hey, look, if you're going to leave this earth tomorrow and you can only leave behind your 3 best pieces of wisdom to the generations that come after you to help them live their best life, what would those 3 things be? So, Robb, what are your Misfit 3?
I think number 1 is invest in your health. We have an unlimited budget for health in our household. Number 2, continuously invest in your education. Education doesn't stop after high school or college. 42% of people never read a full book after high school. So we have an unlimited budget for education in our household. And number 3, and this is the hardest lesson I've had to learn, Dave, focus on what you're great at and don't get distracted by shiny objects.
I love all 3 of those because they are so important for all areas of life. If people do want to learn more about you, where should they go?
Yeah, I'm the One podcast. I'm the one.com. We're on Spotify and podcasts. Love to have anybody putting AMA and Ask Me Anything questions on I'm the one.com. Would love to connect with anybody that has any questions or anything I can help with. I mean, honestly, I'm doing this to try to reach out and help more people. I try to coach. I love coaching. I love helping people. I do it in a way because I want to share what I've learned. And I think that's the best way to learn. I've learned so much from other people that do podcasts and friends. I want to just deliver more of that value to other people out there.
That's awesome. And we'll link to that in the show notes so everybody can find it. The best show notes in the business. No offense, Robb, for reasons I will talk about more in a second. But first, for those of you that are new to the Misfit Entrepreneur, it's your first episode with us, welcome. It's such an honor to have you with us. And I really appreciate you watching, listening. And for all of you that are with us week in, week out, I cannot thank you enough for your support of the show. You are what makes this go in over 100 countries every single week. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And make sure and go out and check out the show notes for this episode. They are the best in the business. Why? Because I do them myself as part of my personal growth routine each and every week. I go back through these episodes with amazing entrepreneurs like Robb, and I take my best pieces of wisdom, insight, tips, strategies, and I share those with you. So check those out. And then go out and give this episode a rating and review, like and comment on it. Help share Robb's message, because we all know, and I say this in every episode, one great episode can change someone's life. Maybe something that Robb shared today was that missing link you were looking for to get to your next level. So share this with others. And again, Robb, thank you so much for coming on, sharing all your wisdom and insight today.
Dave, thanks so much for having me. I enjoyed the conversation.